Zechariah 2, 1 through 5. It says, I lifted up my eyes again and looked, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. Then said, Whither goest you? Or like, where are you going? And he said unto me, to measure Jerusalem, to see what is the breadth thereof, and what's the length thereof. And behold, the angel that talked with me went forth, and another angel went out to meet him, and said unto him, Run, speak to this young man, saying, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as towns without walls, for the multitude of men and cattle therein. Interesting, huh, guys? Do you ever wonder why there's cattle in heaven? Why is there cattle in New Jerusalem? Verses 10 through 12 of Zechariah 2 says, Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come and I dwell in the midst of you, says the Lord. And many nations shall be joined to the Lord in that day, and shall be my people. And I will dwell in the midst of you. And you shall know that the Lord of hosts has sent me unto you. And the Lord shall inherit Judah his portion in the Holy Land, and shall choose Jerusalem again. Yes, yes, he shall. So this is an amazing, beautiful promise. Like I said, just talking about giving you some more time qualifiers of context as we discuss this moment in the future that hasn't happened yet, where he talks about the many nations, not just Israel, not just the resurrected saints of Israel, but many nations shall be joined to the Lord in that day. And this is what we've done teachings on this channel in the past, and I'll continue to talk about them in the future, where all the nations are brought before Yeshua for judgment. The ones that refuse his authority, the ones that refuse his judgeship, right? They don't like the way he does things. They're not going to stay. But the ones that are deemed sheep, the ones that actually agree with his behavior because they're practicing it in their own heart, that's in their internal disposition. This is the Matthew 25:31 moment. These are the people not resurrected. These are the many nations that are drawn to the Lord that are still alive after he shows up. They are given a choice, basically. Do you want to stay in this kingdom and participate in the behavior of the commandments of God, the Torah, the behavior of the Father and the Son, or do you want to do opposite behavior because you're not going to be able to, right? This is one of those deals where, because remember, opposite behavior of the Father and the Son means you create destruction and death. If you do the behavior of the Father and the Son, you're creating peace and life. You're creating good things. You're doing good to your fellow man. You're loving the Lord and your fellow neighbor as yourself. Anything opposite of that creates death and destruction and pain. That's not going to be allowed to persist when Yeshua returns and establishes peace on the earth. So therefore, anyone that willfully chooses not to be a part of that will be taken out of the game. They'll go to Sheol, and all the remaining will reestablish the repopulation of the earth in the millennial reign, okay, who live outside the city. So what's so beautiful, though, is they'll still be considered joined unto the Lord. This is why in Isaiah chapter 2, verses 4 through 5, it talks about how the Torah, the commandments of God, the instructions for living, will go forth from Zion, from the New Jerusalem, to all these nations that are round about it and are needing to learn that kind of behavior because they've never truly been taught it. They were just doing it according to their conscience. So this is it's kind of a big important thing. All right. So I had asked about the cattle. Why would it mention that there's cattle? We have why would the scriptures in Zechariah 2 mention that there was cattle in the New Jerusalem in Zion? Okay. Jeremiah 15:16 says, with cute emojis, says there's divine service. Yes. There's divine service. And what that means is that the cattle is a part of God's instructions for living. As someone else put down here a few minutes later, Kelly J is saying it's essentially a meal with the Father in his presence. That's what the priests would do with the animals, right? The oxen or the goat or the sheep. They would take and they would prepare a meal between them and the Father, and they would have a fellowship. They would, have a get together and create a meal, right? Yeah, and this is what we've said in the past. It can be likened into like a barbecue, like a family barbecue. You're getting together and have a fellowship meal. That's all it is, guys. But there is a lot of people really struggle with this. There is a growing disposition amongst a lot of very young believers who have not studied the actual Torah, the actual instructions of God in the first part of the Bible. There's a growing disposition among them that are rejecting meat. And a lot of them are doing this not on the basis of how the meat is slaughtered or whether there's hormones in it or not, but simply on the basis of their feelings that they don't like the fact that animals are used for food. This is something that's taught to people through ancient Hinduism, to be honest with you, which is just an offshoot of ancient Babylonian mysticism. This is what we also see happening in Egypt a few chapters back, where had forbidden the Israelites to actually slaughter a sheep or a goat for Passover. And this is some of the conversation we read in the past couple of weeks between Pharaoh and Moses, where he was saying, hey, look, Pharaoh was like, just go sacrifice in the land. Instead of leaving to do your sacrifices, just go sacrifice where you are here in Egypt. And Moses and Aaron were like, we can't. The Egyptians will stone us. We can't sacrifice here, because it's well documented in history that the Egyptians, or at least at certain points of the Egyptian kingdoms, they were living more of a vegan style lifestyle, which was synonymous with the Babylonian practices as well as ancient India. And this is even up to today. There's ancient India is huge on veganism, right? They worship the cow, they worship the ox. This comes from Baal worship, and therefore they don't want to eat it. So also the Egyptians worshipped a god that was representative of a lamb, so they didn't want to eat these things that they were dishonoring their god or whatever. So this is just all branching off. And then in modern times, they try to put it under like, climate change. It's better to be vegan. Eating cows is going to cause climate change, all this nonsense. And then they also talk about, they try to sell it to a lot of good-hearted believers, saying that, well, there's harmful hormones, there's unsavory slaughtering practices, and there could be, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of natural producers of meat everywhere in the United States and in most countries. That, I mean, we've found a couple different places that my wife and I have ordered from, that there's no hormones or antibiotics or anything that's put into the animals, and they slaughter them humanely. There's a way to actually slaughter animals humanely. They've been doing it for thousands of years. It's instructed in the Torah. This is what the priests were doing at the temple. Lambs were not screaming. It's literally referenced in Isaiah 53, likening Yeshua going to the cross as a lamb brought with a priest before the temple to be slaughtered, that it is silent. It doesn't scream. All right. If it's screaming, you're doing it wrong. I'm sorry to inform you. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to be a silent. Anyway, I'm not going to all that. There's a lot more to it. For people that have actually slaughtered animals and know there is a difference what you can do. If you have slaughtered animals and it was in complete agony, I'm sorry, you were doing it wrong. So the whole point is, this is part of the actual system that was designed for creation. So these sacrifices that we're reading about that are being practiced in the New Jerusalem are already going on in heaven today. This is exactly what Hebrews chapter 8, 1-5 tells us, that even Yeshua, our high priest, brings forth gifts and sacrifices as a part of his priesthood. And he's administering his priesthood in the heavenly temple and above today. So this is a huge deal for the Israelites trying to practice this and install this into this generation that had been in Egypt too long and forgot these practices, forgot this behavior of Israel. Because remember, Israel is the same moniker, if you will, that is given to the family of heaven above. We're all part of this, engrafted into this family of Israel, and the practices and behaviors thereof. Part of that is creating a fellowship meal with your Father. It's very simple. It doesn't have to be a religious thing. And this is the part we've done quite a few videos on this, and it apparently needs a healthy reminder from time to time, because there's so many people that struggle with this so greatly because of modern day assault against biblical principles. So hopefully that's something to put in your back pocket. People want to bring this up, you can go to Zechariah chapter 2 and Isaiah 4, and you can talk more about some of the descriptions of the incredible promised land that the saints are promised. Okay, guys, we got someone calling in. So before I start chapter 14, I'll go ahead and take this call real quick. And it looks like we have Isaiah calling in. Hey, Isaiah, what's up?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, I really wish more churches would teach on what you were just talking about, like the practices that the priesthood did. It's going on in heaven, because they don't teach. I didn't know anything about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that behavior was going on, and you're right about the veganism thing. I see a huge push. I even see some Christians online will teach that before Adam and Eve sinned, they were vegan, or they didn't eat animals in there. And I'm like, okay, I don't know, when I would read the Old Testament and they would do sacrifices, when I was younger, I never had an issue with it. Yeah. But over time, you see atheists make the argument, why would they do something barbaric? You got, the vegan people, they're like, oh, well, Yahweh's evil. Why would he do that? You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
no, I don't,
because all of it's framed with misunderstanding of what they were actually doing with those sacrifices. They weren't just killing animals for the sake of killing animals. They were literally creating meals for themselves to eat every day.
Yeah.
So basically they were taking the normal process that we all do, but they were doing them in a specific way so that it was considered sanctified unto the Lord, to have that normal process that men do all the day anyway, which is create food for yourself. And they would do it in a specific way so they could do it with the Father, so he could enjoy fellowship with him. That's what it was all about. And so, yeah, you're right. The world just tries to misrepresent it. They try to portray it in a way that's somehow bad, because this is what the enemy does. It doesn't like God's behavior, and it tries to vilify it. As believers like you and I, it puts us in unique positions to try to defend, if you will, the loving behavior of our Heavenly Father. And you're defending it against a bunch of misconceptions. You're not defending it against people that are actually competent in the scriptures. You know what I mean? And like you said, you and I growing up, we were never taught competency in this subject matter, because we were always told, well, that was all for the Jews.